Podcasting live from across the United States, this is the Multitapped Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the Multitapped Podcast. Tonight we're going to be going over fighting games, and we have some special guests with us. First off is Jay Dubious, of course.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Then joining us again this week, which will be week 2 of his 3-week surprise, will be Avalanche Jared. And then lastly is our boy Josh. And for those of you who have been following me and Dubious since the early days of Multitap, before Multitap ever started, we used to do this podcast called the Zoc Gaming Podcast, and that was Dubious, myself, and Josh.
Let's be fair, it turned into MOBA chat half the time.
Hell yeah, that was back when people actually played those games. To ease my feelings.
Yeah.
Not
we
just
grew up. We play better games now.
Oh God, words hurt, man. Come on.
Yeah, good point.
Hey man, I got to come right off the tails of TI. What is that? 5,
6. Oh,
I know you're still I bet you're still a Dota fanboy.
Yeah, I won't even get into it, dude. I got the fucking new Hutch tattoo going on and shit. Like,
Oh my gosh.
Get into it. Anyways, point being, we're here to talk about fighting games. And I honestly don't think I could get a better lineup. I know Josh doesn't have too big of an online presence, but this man is a serious fighting game. Just it's his deal. And Avalanche Jared, for those of you who don't know, is a man of many interests, ranging from the Far East to fighting games. So
yeah, pretty much.
The Far East.
Yeah, so, well, I'm trying to think of a polite way to call him a weeb, so that was the best.
I
It
wanted to
worked.
call it
That was
weeb.
very polite. That worked.
Thank you. 10 points to Dumbledore. But the first thing I wanted to do, just kind of open up the whole evening, is I wanted to know what everybody's, first real fighting game they got into. Because I feel like fighting games kind of break down into genres, and, I'm sure we'll get into it if we talk about Skullgirls, too. But I think the first one you really got into kind of defines your play style as a player. So what about you, Dubious? What was the first one you really got into?
Street Fighter 2. It was the first one that I played. Yeah, I mean, when Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat were out, those were the two biggest things in the 90s. And I got into Mortal Kombat a little bit later on, but for the most part, I've kind of always stayed the Street Fighter series and that style of fighting game.
See, Street Fighter 2 Turbo was the first game I ever got for my Super Nintendo, because I got my Super Nintendo when I was 18. My buddy sold it to me for $5. And I was like, sweet, well, I'm going to go down the street to the fucking Goodwill and see if I can find any games. And they had Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And I'm like, sweet, it's a good use of dollars. I'll pick that up, bring it home, bust it out. Yeah, it was great. What about you, Jared?
All right, so I started out, obviously, probably the first fighting game I ever played was Street Fighter 2. But the first game that made me decide, I want to play fighting games, not just this is the first game that made me see fighting games as a totally different style of game was I think Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Ooh,
Oh, that was going to be my answer, dude.
That's a good answer. I like that.
But it's a shitty way to come into fighting games, though, because then you expect everything to be broken and unbalanced when it's really terrible. But that's why it was good, and a good introduction for someone like me who didn't know shit. I had always played fighting games. I had always played, your Marvel superheroes versus Street Fighter and all the fighting games that came out. I've never liked Mortal Kombat, to be completely honest with you. It's just one of those things you always had to get when it came out. Mortal Kombat 2 on Super NES, you got to get it. But but I think I got into fighting games really around Marvel 2 because you could just pick up Cable and just do his jumping laser gun forever.
You were one of those.
But it was you could pick up the game as a total noob and play a character that was completely unbalanced.
It was definitely friendly to button mashers.
Yeah,
in a way that was fun, but you still kind of feel like you could feel what was going on.
Yeah, the shittiest player. When I figured out you could tag out for specials. And I was like, oh, I got a 108 hit combo. Of course, it was Cyclops, Cable, and fucking Wolverine or something.
Job, did quarter circle forward 2 buttons.
I am a god,
that's what it was. I wanted a belt buckle that said 108 hits on it or something.
I had a friend a lot like that with Marvel 3. He got into it, and he's like, yo, I found this combo, and it's 120 hits. And I'm just kind of thinking, probably doesn't do that much damage, though. You're probably just using a lot of beam supers. And then he showed it to me. I'm like, yeah. But he's so happy about the 108 hit in the corner.
Well, you feel like a fucking scientist when you figure it out. You're like, holy shit, that's what the assist type means? So I just like... Oh, man. What about you, though, Josh?
Mine's kind of weird, because the first game I played was Street Fighter 2 for the SNES, which kind of gave me my foundation with, learning how to do quarter circle forward and Shoryuken motions and how to just throw fireballs and uppercut with Ryu, which is what I did back then. But then I actually really did not like fighting games for a very, very long time. I felt that it was too difficult, too hard to get into. And then I think actually Smash Bros. 64 and Smash Bros. Melee is when I started to get into that whole competitive thing. I was like, oh, this is actually really fun. And then a friend of mine bugged the hell out of me for a long time to play Street Fighter 4 with him. I finally got into it, and I've just been fanatic about 2D fighters. I've gone back and played every King of Fighters game ever. Comic book fighters like the whole Marvel vs. Capcom series. I'll play the Last Blade Sam show. I mean, you name it. I have Fightcade, and I'm on there all the time, just playing whatever random games there. Yeah, so technically Street Fighter's my start, but I really didn't start giving a shit until Smash Bros.
See, that makes sense too, because I remember when Smash Brothers came out, it didn't even hit me that it was a fighter.
It does not feel like it. It's kind of tricks you into playing a fighting game. It's a party game, and
it's like an arena fighter, but it's like a 2D arena fighter. You know what I mean? It feels super.
That's another one of those big contentions about the fighting game community. Is Smash Bros. A fighting game or not?
I mean, I absolutely think it is.
I think it is.
It's unique, but I'd still call it.
It is, because I think it can be played like one. It doesn't have to be, though.
Yeah,
you can turn on all items, do crazy stages with all sorts of weird rules. You can make it a goofy party game where every 10 seconds bombs spawn. Yeah. But you can play it like a legit, serious fighting game, with frame counting if that's your thing, block timing, reversals, safe options, unsafe options.
It makes me want to puke.
It's got the whole. It's as deep as you want it to go.
Yeah, that's true.
It's funny for me because I have a competitive gaming background, and there are things that I totally pull dicks on and I can play this fucking game, man. But when people are like, hey, you want to throw down on some serious melee? I'm like, absolutely not. Fuck you. I don't know how to fucking wave dash. I'm not animation canceling, dude. I'm here to play video games. Fuck off.
You just hit me and I died.
The thing. See, I've noticed this about Smash is that now I've only started taking competitive fighting games seriously within probably the last 2 years. So I'm still new to this whole scene. But coming from the outside looking in, because I used to play casually Street Fighter 4. I bought it at launch just because it was a new Street Fighter game. It was cool to have. And then I started, getting more into the more competitive side of things. But I would say coming from the outside looking in, Smash is deeper than other fighting games, needlessly deeper than other fighting games. See, I get into fighting games and I get into the real deeper aspects because you could play a game of Street Fighter V and not understand what a safe move is and how to counter and how to
play
take advantage.
For an hour, you'll see all of that.
Yeah, no, you definitely can, and you can get real deep with it. And then I think Smash Brothers is way deeper because I think it was a game that was left open, not on purpose. I think we're making this game for kids who like Nintendo, so of course they'll play around with it. And they didn't think they had to code such restrictions into the game. And I think that's where we got our fucking wave dance dashing.
Actually, you're completely right about that because the lead developer for Smash Bros, Sakurai, anybody who knows Smash Bros knows that guy's name, and most of them curse it because everybody think Melee is kind of the golden standard. That was one that had, you've seen what people can do, you've watched Evo. You've seen that there's a top level player, and you can think, oh, I'm the best among my group of friends. I'm really good at Smash Bros. And then you see what these people are doing. You're like,
it's disgusting. It literally makes me
play the game that fast.
It's a whole different.
I didn't even know the GameCube could read inputs that quick. But
yeah.
And then after that, Sakurai, the main developer, especially with Smash Brawl, he added in tripping and all sorts of things. Basically, he said, I hate the idea of this being a competitive game.
Yeah, he didn't like it at all.
So every other iteration of Smash has now been pushing against the competitive side. And people are like, look, you don't have to make the game competitive. You can just let it be competitive,
Yeah.
and then let everyone play it. Play it the way you want to.
It kind of reminds me of old Street Fighter 2, people finding out that you could actually link moves together without the chance to block them between them.
The whole idea that combos themselves were an accident.
Yeah,
that's a great story.
That's how it feels to me, except for it feels like you go in on a frame-by-frame basis with Smash, and you have to learn. You're a classical pianist at the top levels of Smash. It's insanity.
That's actually that comes up in other fighting games, like because there's not a whole lot of well, it started to get a lot more because Smash Bros is getting a lot more acceptance, sort of like with the Street Fighter crowd in the tournaments.
Yeah.
You start getting a lot of people because it used to be like you played Smash and that was your game, and you played Street Fighter and other 2D fighters and that was your game, and you played Anime Fighters or you play Marvel, and
Right.
you didn't have a whole lot of overlap, but now you do. And one of the things that people have noticed about guys coming over from Melee and playing like Street Fighter is their execution is on point.
I believe it.
They're used to playing Smash Bros, which has crazy execution requirements at the high end.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I just don't
do
do
it.
it.
To learn the 2D fighter system rather than the more fluid combo system of Smash, but execution has never been a problem with those guys.
I believe it. I mean, it's insane. I've seen streams of people playing, and they just have cameras on their hands, and it's absolute insanity. And I could, my execution's not great, but I could pull off some cool shit, but nowhere in the neighborhood of like just a regular Smash match with some of these guys.
No, like I know how to wave dash, and I can do it pretty consistently, but not in a way that's effective.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, look at this thing I can do, and then I just punch in my mouth.
It makes me laugh because when I look at competitive fighting games, right, it was the weirdest thing the first time I saw one, right? Because I come from a MOBA background, and there's a very visible difference between casual competitive players. There's like fucking numbers. There's no secret about it, but like anybody can do it, you know what I mean? And I've been playing fighting games my entire life, and this was literally like 3 years ago the first time I ever saw a competitive game of Smash. And I sat down and I saw it, and I was like, what the fuck? Because they did a replay and they were like, yeah, 1 frame off. That's how he got the hit, was 1 frame. Humans don't process that fast. What the fuck? And I watched it. I'll even tell you who it was. I know he's not like a huge name in competitive, but I was watching Luigi Sama, and I was watching a bunch of his matches, and I'm just like, this is absolutely the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Like, I had never seen such a huge discrepancy between like casual players and
that's what starts to give you that idea. People like, oh yeah, I'm like super good at Smash Bros. You start to look at them like, you're probably actually not.
Because it's a whole different world. Like,
yeah, it really is.
It's a whole different level.
That's a big thing with competitive gaming, you know what I mean? But it just feels like that gap is so huge in fighting games. It's insane.
I think that's one of the problems. I mean, do you guys think that fighting games are gaining popularity or losing popularity?
I think gaining popularity.
Because they definitely had a definite dark period. Because basically, especially in America, the decline of the arcade.
Well, it hit oversaturation in the mid-90s.
Yeah, they did, and then, like you said, the death of the arcades brought. I think certain like arcade accurate consoles, like the Dreamcast, there was a bump a little bit. You had your Third Strike jumping in there, and people were interested in that, I guess. But I think within the last 6 years, we've seen a steady increase.
That's what I've noticed too, because I definitely, back around the time, let's throw out Third Strike. That came out in like what, 1999.
Wow.
And it was like the last Street Fighter. It was the only, it was the latest Street Fighter game for like 10 years. They didn't do anything, and not a lot of people liked Third Strike. That was a relatively unpopular Street Fighter game.
Yeah.
I mean, huge in Japan, but over here, people are like, what? There's Ryu, I know him, but what are all these other weirdos? And this game is weird. And where's the combos? What is going on here?
The first time I played that game was at Portland Retro last year. Very first time I'd ever even seen it, and they had a cabinet for it.
It feels weird compared to another Street Fighter
It's
game.
fucking really weird. That game was
It's a
crazy.
really good game, but it feels weird. It's very
I
off-putting.
rented it on launch for Dreamcast, and I remember thinking the sprites looked incredible. I used to play fighting games specifically just for sprite animation and just the visual aspect.
King of Fighters games, the Third Strike has astoundingly good sprites.
Yeah, and fluid animation, but then I picked it up, and being someone who wasn't into fighting games other than your Marvel 2 type of games, I started playing that and I was like, oh, this is nasty.
Yeah, it's such a weird game. But I think in that era, fighting games definitely just started crashing because arcades were dying, and fighting games are one of those things where if you don't have people to play with, this is before like online thing was a big thing. You didn't have anyone to play with. Like, so playing a fighting game by yourself is pretty shitty. Let's be honest. Even if it has a really good story mode, like what Mortal Kombat started doing, but it's just there's a difference between sitting next to a buddy and figuring out combos as you're playing. Like, oh, then you just keep doing it, and they start getting mad. You're like, yeah, and then they figure out how to beat it, and you're like, shit. I mean, my win streak.
It's such a gratifying feeling, and it's funny that you mentioned because right around when fighting games started to really lose their popularity is when I got my first gaming console. So, like, the first fighting game I ever had was Tekken. That was, like, the fighting game that I was, like, really introduced to fighting games with, you know what I mean? And I feel like Tekken at this point has become sort of its own archetype in how fighting games are designed. But, it's
different even from other 3D fighters.
It is so fucking weird, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, Tekken's great, but it's just its own fucking thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is.
So literally, like, there was just years of every match being like Eddie Gordo versus King, just like every single fight, you know what I mean? Or like, oh, sweet, here comes a Jack, this is great. But like, those were the fighting games I was used to, and then eventually I'm like, whoa, Marvel vs. Capcom, this is sweet, because I remember playing that, my buddy got the 360 port. And that was like when we really started playing it. And the thing that got me about it wasn't even the fluidity of it. Because if you look at Tekken compared to Marvel is so much faster. You know what I mean? It's not even close. Yeah. No, so that wasn't even what really hit me. What hit me was the character roster. Yeah. Like the first time I just saw just like that solid page of faces.
And it's like, oh, I could play any of them.
Exactly. And without even realizing it, it ended up getting me hooked on other genres. Because when I play Marvel vs. Capcom, I'm one of those guys who just slams Darkstalker teams. Like, oh man, here comes Amigo and shit. Like, you ready, baby? But, later on, I'm like, wait, Darkstalkers is its own series? That's like a game and an anime? That's a thing that exists? Like, whoa, those games are fantastic. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's what really got me about Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I think that's also why I was really drawn to Mugen. Like, right after I got out of high school, I was like, oh, I've got so much free time on my hands, so what am I going to do? And I'd been watching a bunch of Salty Bets. I was like, okay, man, well, I guess I'm just going to install Mugen, and let's go for it.
Yeah, I could see that. God, that brings me back. Holy shit, Mugen, wow.
I actually have never, like, I know what Mugen is. I used to watch Salty Bets all the time. I've never actually tried Mugen.
For those in chat who don't know what it is, just a quick explanation, because whenever I bring it up, people are like, what the fuck is Mugen? What are you talking about? It's a open source program that's pretty much just the framework for a 2D fighting game. So you just download it, and then you search for like background packs, audio packs, character packs for whatever the fuck you want, and just throw it in. And like mine was
like a RPG maker for fighting games.
Yeah, for fighting games.
Exactly,
and like
it does,
crazy as shit. Like I did the Street Fighter 2 as far as like menus and like levels and everything, but it's Mugen, so you got like 100 characters. It's like fucking Sora. I had Tom Hanks, and like I had a joke character in there that was the Orca from Metal Slug 3.
I remember that. I've seen that thing.
When it's on the raft and they just move around, and then you hit the punch button, it just jumps up and swallows them, and it's just like, oh my god, dude, this fucking game.
Mugen was only joke characters. Like, he was insanity.
Mugen was made because someone wanted to see Homer Simpson fight Goku.
Which, by the way, Homer Simpson, at least the sprite based off of the Konami arcade game, it's a killer fucking character in like the latest Mugen battles.
It's one of those Salty Bet, man. It's just their golden rules on Salty Bet is just always bet on DBZ. Always.
No, it's always bet waifu. What are you talking about?
Yeah, nonstop. Yeah.
No, it's waifu.
Waifu or MS Paint characters are always broken.
So I'm going to break protocol a little bit here because I completely forgot about this, but I think it's important and we should talk about it before we move on to anything else. Is Street Fighter V and people hating it?
Yeah.
It's launched.
That's something we should talk about.
It's still recovering from its terrible launch.
Here's my thing.
In the notes, man.
And then I'm just going to lay my shit right out there for everybody to see. I'm whipping it out. I already made a video on this, and I don't think it had a shit launch. I think it had a launch that, it 100% let everybody know what was going to happen beforehand. So my problem is I watch videos from like Angry Joe, who's nice enough to shout me out. So I don't want to be a dickhead, but he picked it up. He's just like, "Oh, this is so unfinished." I fucking watched every pre-release. They're just like, "Oh, well, here's what we're gonna launch with. There's gonna be no story mode." And he's like, "I can't believe there's no story mode." And I'm like, "Why wouldn't you be able to believe that? You've had 3 weeks to understand that. You're out of your goddamn mind." I think it launched with exactly what it needed, which was online multiplayer, a roster of characters, and the promise of more roster of characters to come. Nobody complained when KI came out under the same exact model, but because this is a Capcom game and people hyped it up, the casuals were really upset that they weren't able to, jump in with a 32, character roster and pull off 100 hit combos right off the bat.
I think a lot of people forgot. Like people are like, oh, this is a, Street Fighter V. Look at the other Street Fighter games. They got look at Street Fighter 4. It's like those Street Fighter 4 launched with a roster of like 16 characters.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
It wasn't until Super where they added a ton, and then they started adding more. Most of these games launch with very small rosters and then build on it over time. Most of them aren't ambitious like King of Fighters game that wants 50 at launch.
Yeah,
I think the problem with its launch wasn't with the game itself. It was with how Capcom handled it. Because they have shown over the last 20 years they have no idea how to talk to their fan base.
Oh,
they are completely just oblivious to their own fans, if not outright shitting on them.
See, this is where the divide comes, because I agree with you, but at the same time, I was 100% informed on every aspect that was going to be available and omitted
from the
launch version of Street Fighter V. But the thing is this was being broadcast directly to the FGC. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the fighting game community was a part of the beta. They watched the Capcom release talks, when you had actual big contenders in the FGC sitting down with people from Capcom saying, here's what's going to be available.
They had all those betas beforehand. They had tons of exhibition matches, little tournaments. They hyped it up pretty well.
We had a pipeline into what was going to happen with this game, but I don't think they made that available to the public at large. Kotaku wasn't covering this stuff, no. But if you were subscribed to Gootecks, he was.
I think what you mentioned, the problem is the fighting game community knew about it.
Yeah.
And those are the guys who, they don't care about story mode. You got training mode, you got online multiplayer, we're in.
Done. That's it.
And everyone else is like, oh, where's the story mode? It's like, really? Is that what you play fighting games for?
Yeah.
You're the kind of guy, if you play this is going to be really unfair, and I don't want to be like, oh, you're a fucking scrub. Stop. No, play fighting games however the way you like them. If you like the story, that's cool. But these are going to be the types of guys that buy the fighting game, the first couple of weeks it's out, play through it a little bit, play the story mode, maybe mess around with their friends for it a couple weekends, and then that thing is gathering dust on a shelf the rest of their life. Just like, a bunch of other, Mario Karts or party games, unless your friends are really into that kind of stuff.
And that's
play
not
it for
even
a little bit and then move on.
Yeah, and that's not even the insult that you kind of thought that it was in the beginning of saying that. It really, because it makes sense. You are a casual player. The casual's become an insult. But I'm a casual player of first-person shooters. Donovan's played CSGO with me before. Casual is putting it lightly.
Yeah, we had a good time though. That's all I know, baby.
I was doing shitty that day though. In all honesty,
dude, you're horrible. You were so embarrassed too, dude. You were so mad. You're like, go figure. The second you show up, I just start feeding, and I'm just sitting there dropping people. Like, dude, have you ever played this game before?
But that's how I feel about people who play Street Fighter. There's nothing wrong with being casual with it, but
I don't think casual should be a 4-letter word.
But let's look at it from Capcom's point of view. Who are they going to make money on? There's the casual whale who'll spend money on DLC characters just because he's an idiot
or costumes, or it's that initial rush of new game. They bought it, and then maybe some costumes.
Who's going to support this franchise? It's the FGC. So when it launched, who was it supporting? The FGC and the FGC alone. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. A lot of people were pissed off about that. Oh, well, I'm casual and I wanted this. Well, you know what? I play Madden games and tactical RPGs, but at no point have I gotten pissed about the lack of tactical RPG features in a Madden game, because those games were made for me. And there are a lot of games that were Minecraft was not made for me in any way, shape, or form. And never once have I complained about the lack of a feature in Minecraft. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. That's people who are like, oh, well, there's no story mode. And I was like, yeah, well, there's no survival crafting mode either, and I'm totally fine with that too, because it wasn't made for those.
I actually have I've a really good reference point for this, because I have a friend of mine who's really into fighting games. She's like really into old fighting games. He doesn't, but I've noticed he's definitely a single player kind of person. Like, it's just what he's like. He's like he'll play through. Like he said once back when he was a lot younger, he played through like a King of Fighters game and did like 500 rounds of survival because it was one of those endless survival things.
Yeah.
And he just felt like playing it, and yeah, he plays against the AI. That's just what he does. So it's like I've seen him in training mode, dropping combos. I'm like, damn, your execution's actually pretty good. Then I play him like versus and just completely slaughter him because he knows how to deal with AI, not a human opponent.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to read or mix.
But that's just sort of the reference point of that kind of guy. And then he was really, really down on Street Fighter V when it came out. He's like, oh, they're basically just charging full price for an alpha build of the game, or an early access is what he kept calling it.
Yeah.
And I was like, everything is there that a fighting game player wants.
100%.
Here's my thing: is if we look at the genre as a whole, right? And this is in no way, shape, or form meant to be an insult. So if it sounds like it when I say it, just remember that it's not single player friendly.
No,
like period. Like and that's not a bad thing, you know what I mean?
It never has been. I don't.
It's one of like I can think of a handful of games that were fun to play by myself that were fighting games, and it's like Injustice because the story mode in that was fucking dope, legit.
Yeah.
That's fine. It was DC. That's to be expected. You know what I mean? And then some of the newer Mortal Kombats and like Soul Calibur 3 through 5, and even then it wasn't because it was like some compelling story that I was enjoying a lot. It was just like customizing characters and unlocking shit. Like it was just enjoyable. It wasn't like a good fucking story.
Sure.
So it's not one of those things where like MMOs, that's something that is designed around being multiplayer, but you can absolutely enjoy by yourself. And like I'm a single player MMO player, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like that.
How do you design a fighting game around one person playing it? It just feels so anti what the entire thing is about.
It really is, and that's I think it kind of goes to the arcades. No one cared about a story mode in the arcade. That's just basically you just dicked around. That was your training mode in an arcade. You do combos against the AI until someone sidles up like, hey, yeah, pop in a quarter, let's go.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's actually a good analogy there.
Yeah, so it's. I thought it was really weird that he was down on it, and it's like I don't get it because everything is there that I wanted, and I was like, really, do you care about a story mode? Do you care why Ryu's traveling around the world punching dudes in the mouth?
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no survival. There's no endless survival. I was like, play 100 round survival, do the hard mode survival, see if you can get to 100. It's endless enough.
Yeah,
it's annoying and it's tedious. And I get who actually likes fighting the AI in a fighting game.
Well, I also think it's a problem that's very indicative of modern gaming too, because it seems like recently, ever since the free-to-play model became really popular and widely used, it seems like there's this really strict concept of value. Like if you're paying $60 for a full game, then you better be getting a lot of value out of it, right?
Yeah.
But value is such a fucking relative term, and like this discussion is a perfect example because somebody who's like into fighting games. Getting Street Fighter V with just multiplayer and like 16 solid, balanced, fluid characters, that's what you want out of the game. It's just somebody who's looking for value. You're not necessarily getting a lot of value out of it, and I think that's it's just a problem with the industry right now. If you even really think about it,
they want options. Like they're misconstruing the term value. They just want to see all the buttons and all the options. And I want to be able to do that. Are you actually going to do it? Oh, like once.
I mean, take for example, if we're talking about value for a game, games that released around the same time. You have Final Fantasy Tactics, which is easily you could turn that into an 86-hour game without a problem, right? Just going through the deep dark dungeon, and then you have Resident Evil. Both of these released to relatively high acclaim. Resident Evil was like what, a 4-hour game, 6 hours if you just played it for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, but both of those are great games and worth $60 when they launched. And the same thing with fighting games that release with just a training mode and a multiplayer mode, because I've easily put 200 hours into Street Fighter V. So for me, $60 down on the table for 200 hours, it's a solid value. You know, and then plus the fact that new characters are going to be released. I think the DLC model has been the best thing that's ever happened to fighting games as far as balance goes.
Yeah. That's something people are really down about. Like, don't really mention a lot. DLC is amazing for fighting games, so you get to make new characters and balance them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of us, who've been playing fighting games for a long time, we kind of have fond memories of super broken bullshit.
Like Wolverine in every game he's ever appeared in.
Half the old fighting games is all about just what dumb, broken shit is there. And sometimes it could be as simple as, this character has an infinite. Or if it's the Fist of the North Star fighting game, every character has multiple infinites, and that game is retarded, but in the best way.
It's so fun.
It's like sometimes balance doesn't mean fun, and sometimes it's not. Just because one isn't true doesn't mean the opposite has to be.
Yeah.
It really goes both ways. It depends on what the game wants to be.
And it really helps during development too, because now you have a core set of characters that you can develop for and balance for.
Yep.
And then as the game releases in popularity, you release a new character, which pays for development with however many people buy it. And that character can be balanced into the current roster without an issue while people are playing the game. So, I mean, financially, it's a genius move.
I think one of the biggest things, especially about balance, is now that the fighting game community has become an actual thing, and the online presence is giving people voices. You actually have you have high-level players who Capcom, the devs teams, like Capcom started approaching, like, hey, play our game, tell you what you think. They actually get people who are good at these games playing them throughout the whole development cycle, whereas before it's like, yeah, you got the guy coding it, and you got the guy doing the art assets. They might not be fighting game players, so they're sitting here screwing around like, this seems balanced. And one guy's like, dude, you could just jab, jab, dash, jab, and infinite? Like, never thought about that. Never happened.
Yeah. And,
so
it's the best use of focus testing I think anybody's ever seen before.
Yeah, which is, I think Street Fighter V shows very well, because people love their tier lists.
Yeah.
Oh my
Who's
God.
the best character in the game? Who's the worst character in the game?
Tier list. Don't even get me in on that shit.
Especially old fighting games, those tier lists had weight. They had water. They meant something. The best character, the worst character. I mean, you got fucking Akuma and you got Dan.
Yeah.
A casual player can play those two characters and be like, yeah, even I can see the difference. This dude sucks and this dude is amazing.
Poor Dan.
But in Street Fighter V, like, a lot of people have, you'll find the same kind of character, the same few characters in the top tier and the same few in the bottom tier. But how close is that? Like, how much better is the top tier character than the low tier character? I think it's as close as I've ever seen in a fighting game.
Easily. Yeah.
Even the worst character in the game is absolutely usable.
Yeah,
they don't
100%.
have a crippling flaw that makes them unplayable. Like Dan. I mean, Dan's a good example, but he was a joke character. He's supposed to be bad.
Right. That makes sense. I agree. It's probably it's hard to say the most balanced fighting game, but as far as character versus character, a tier list is almost unnecessary in Street Fighter V. Everybody's good, and it just depends on the matchup. So
the other thing too, when we talk about this whole why did it flop so bad and why were people so, well, I guess it didn't really flop, but why were people so mad? But with this whole concept of value too is and this is maybe an opinion that people will get mad, probably not if they're listening to a fighting game podcast, but I think fighting games have a really good fun value. Does that make sense? Like, even if you're only playing a fighting game for like 15, 20 minutes at a time, a couple rounds with a buddy, like, it's still really fucking fun, you know what I mean? Like, I'm way more likely to go back to a fighting game once it's on the shelf than I am another game.
I can see that.
Especially true that now that I have all the Neo Geo I've been collecting, because I have like Samurai Showdown 1 through 4, and like, oh man, Samurai Showdown 4 gets real serious around this house. You know what I mean?
It's hard getting into those SNK fighters with that 4-button setup, man. It's a little rough to get into at first.
I don't know. When I started getting into 2D fighters, like, I was just like, oh wait, Street Fighter's actually super fun, and I like this. And I was like, give me every 2D fighter. Like, I went from that to King of Fighters 2002, and you mentioned this earlier, Donovan, about playing like Marvel's Capcom 2, and you just get this giant roster of characters. You're like, oh, I can pick anyone. King of Fighters 2002 had 72 characters.
What the fuck?
And I was just like, oh shit, here we go.
Games, like,
yeah. I mean, the new King of Fighters 14 just launched, or it's about to. It's close to launching. 50 characters is what it's going to start.
Yeah, and you know
with.
what? It's playing pretty damn nice on the demo.
That game had a rougher start, I think, than Street Fighter V did.
Oh yeah, graphics.
Because everyone's like, this game
shit
looks
on it.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
Oh, before I get into that, there's one other thing I wanted to mention about Street Fighter V's rocky launch. There's one of the complaints a lot of people had that I could not wrap my head around, and that was the server stability. on like the first 2 days after launch.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Okay, the game just launched. You actually expected to be able to play online the first day? I mean, let's be honest. How many MMOs have launched and they're unplayable for like the first?
To be fair, though, that's a pipe dream everybody wants. Like, I'm a Blizzard fanboy. I'll fucking admit it. You know what I mean? Like, most of the shit I work in is Blizzard related, but they're just good launches don't happen. Like, Overwatch was the closest, and even then, you couldn't really play it for the first like 4 or 5 hours.
People always like to, for MMOs, people always like to point to World of Warcraft as the golden standard. Not a lot of the people remember Vanilla. It launched like shit.
Dude, every expansion for WoW is just like garbage for 2 days.
I love people are like, oh, it should have been completely 100% functional, no lag, no drops day one. It's like, really?
Well, this is the thing, man. This is really subjective, but I was working a night shift the first day that it launched, and I usually work till like 2 a.m. I was just tired. I didn't want to get into it. The first day after launch, I picked it up and played online matches without an issue. I did play some people with shit connections, but I didn't drop any games. I wasn't waiting an hour to find a game. With Street Fighter 4, the actual vanilla Street Fighter 4 at launch, holy shit, I was sitting 20 minutes in between online matches for the
gotta find a new game to play in between playing your game.
Fucking insanity.
Yeah, so I heard a lot of people complain about, but the servers were really bad at start. For like a couple days, that was actually an amazingly smooth launch. Considering, it's like, I think it boiled down to some people just wanted to hate it.
That's what I was about to say. Exactly. That's true.
But yeah, speaking of Street Fighter V, we might as well get into what the meat of this podcast was going to be. And I'm really excited you guys were able to make this, just because I watched it for the first time this year. Not everything, but I caught all the finals.
Is this your first EVO?
It is. It's the first time I ever
adorable.
watched. Yeah, it was super cute. And so I actually watched EVO this year. I mean, when it was out in Vegas, I mean, it just got so hyped and everything, and they put it on ESPN2, all that jazz. And also, not to sound elitist as fuck, but coming from a MOBA background, I don't consider it like a real esports tournament. It's not big money until you hit 6 figures, you know what I mean? And this year at EVO, Street Fighter V was $100,000. So, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, this is like a real big time fucking event. All right, legitimate, you know what I mean? Which is not to be like, oh man, $10,000, that's not fucking money. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying, you look at the internationals, we're talking about $20 million fucking dollars. You know what I mean?
Like, the internationals a little bit. That's like that is in its own friggin' league. That's just
but I mean, like, even with the early Overwatch tournaments, like I know a lot of the people on the competitive teams, and they're like, if it's not 100,000 or more, we're not really practicing for it. Like, we're competing, but
holy shit, I would love to have that problem. That would be amazing.
Right. But
Evo, popular problems.
EVO this year seemed insane. Absolutely crazy.
It was pretty insane.
It was, especially because, I mean, Capcom games have always been the headliners at EVO. Like, even, back in everybody, almost, if you've been on the internet, if you play fighting games or not, everybody knows EVO Moment 37.
Yeah, we've all seen it.
Why it's called 37, I'm not sure, but it's
there was literally no other EVO moment before that.
Everyone knows that, and that was actually evolution. And if you go back and look at the video and they pull back and you see them playing, it's just like Daigo and Justin sitting in metal folding chairs in like what looks like a dimly lit basement.
Yeah,
and that was evolution.
People around him, yeah.
That was like evolution. What, 2006, 2005, something like that.
It still kind of looked like that this year. To be fair, like watching the videos, I was laughing because I'm used to Blizzard, who just does these crazy elaborate
shows. Which videos, because the final day this is the first ever EVO where the finals were held in a different venue. Usually they just use like the hotel ballroom. This one they had Mandalay Bay, the big stadium, for the big final hurdles. This is the first year they've done that because they just had so many people that it gets bigger here.
Folding chairs. They were still like in folding chairs.
That's the weird thing. I don't know why they don't
table in their fight sticks.
There's one thing. This is just completely apropos of nothing. There's one thing that I'm really sad never happened in the grand finals this year. Being in a giant stadium, just 100,000 people watching. I wanted some dude to just hit the deck. Some dude to just walk up with his fight stick, pull the chair back, put the stick on the ground, and sit on the ground.
Oh, that would be great. Who is it that plays on the ground? Does Luffy play on the ground with his controller?
There's a few people. They're called floor warriors, is their little fighting game term. They're dudes that they grew up basically playing in their own house, sitting on the floor in front of
if
their
you
TV
come
set.
from Asia, that makes sense.
Yeah,
honestly, that's
definitely
how they
Asian.
do it.
You don't get that a lot. Yeah, you don't get that with a lot of Americans, especially a lot of the Asian players. And yeah, they're called floor warriors, and you're just like, because you got to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Play the way you want to play, get comfortable, because you're here to win.
Yeah.
It's just always great to see them pull the chair up and just fucking hit the deck.
Oh man.
Or they'll pull up another chair and put it in front of them and play on it, to hold their stick. There was one dude one year, I think it was Evo 2 or 3 years ago. He had a full rolling construction for his stick. So he had it was like a plywood thing. It's not something you'd find at IKEA, but he just put it together wrong. Is what it looked like. Basically, it was like a desk chair thing with a big partition, so that he could put it between him and his opponents, so they couldn't see his buttons.
Oh.
And they allowed it. It's not actually affecting the way you play. I mean, because with fighting games, sometimes you have side to side setups where each player's looking at the same TV and you're right next to each other. Sometimes they have you across the thing, so you have TV.
I'm not sure which I prefer, to be honest.
I don't know. This is one thing that a lot of people will say, like, "Oh, I don't watch. I don't listen to buttons. I don't watch buttons." Play on a couch sitting next to a friend, and then play people online. You definitely watch buttons, whether you know it or not.
See,
when they start freaking spamming shit, you're like, "Oh, he's doing a reversal." So you just watch.
That's true. If you got someone sitting next to you and they're coming up on wake up, you can hear them like smashing Ultra or something. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I've played in a lot of Japanese arcades, and it's definitely different. It's not as, I don't know, it's just not as personal when you're playing a fucking businessman who's beating the piss out of you. He doesn't even have the fucking gall to not even look you in the eyes afterwards. You were just another notch in his belt that day.
Oh my god, there's so many. This brings up so many things I want to talk about. I don't know how much time we have because there's so many things about the FGC I want to say.
No, please. We can get into it. There's no problem.
Well, there's a guy, Alex Valle. He's one of the big fighting game guys. He's been around since, Daigo's era. He's one of the main guys. He runs this massive weekly tournament in California. He's a big guy in the fighting game community. But even to this day, I think, whenever he plays the people, you know how fighting game sticks have those extra 2 buttons? They have their 8 buttons. Yeah. Well, they're usually used because if you want to bind those buttons to like triple punch or triple kick, you can do that. But what he does he keeps them unbinded, but he hits them all the time. Like as he's playing, he just be hitting them because if his opponent's watching his stick or listening for buttons, it throws him off. So he'll be like mashing a motion, and he'll just be hitting an empty button, literally, and they'll try to do a reversal, and he'll just punish that.
That makes sense.
So
I can see that.
That kind of gets into the game and. That's one thing you don't get online. You can't hear the other person's buttons, and can't trash talk either. That's kind of that's a little bit being friendly rude. Is one of the best
friendly rude's the best. Sometimes unfriendly rude.
You're not actually being a dick to the person, but you're feeling yourself. You're Well,
it's just in fighting games too, man. Like especially, I've noticed it just ever since I got my MVS. Like standing there at the cabinet with somebody, just like elbow to elbow, and you see Victory across the screen, and you're just like, "Oh yeah, I'm the fucking ultimate warrior!" Like it's so
good. To land like a sweet combo, like a real combo you've been practicing, and you land it for real. You almost just want to let go of the stick and celebrate there.
Oh, yeah, especially if it's a long special that they're just locked in for the hits, and you just like turn.
Oh yeah. It's so
nothing better. It is super fun.
No other game like that. Except I know maybe like Mario Kart. You can just be like sliding across the finish and be like, huh? Yeah, I just did that to you.
Well, out of curiosity, since we're talking about this, and it's a digression, but who really cares? Let's fucking talk. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you guys prefer controller or fight stick more? And am I crazy because I feel like I flip-flop? And I really want to get Dubious's opinion on this because have you ever really used a fight stick, an arcade stick, anything like that?
I mean, I've used them in the arcades. Honestly, my preferred, and I'm sure no one will agree with me, but I actually kind of like the joystick on the 360.
Ooh.
For playing fighting games.
Jared's piece on that.
These little bad taste in your mouth there.
At least you didn't see a D-pad. The D-pad on the 360.
No, that D-pad's bad. I don't know. I got like the last fighting game that I got really, really into was Street Fighter 4. And I don't know, like something just clicked with me. I was like, man, I really dig playing fighting games on the 360 pad.
I mean, to be fair, the quarter turn, the quarter rolls on the 360 stick it feels pretty good. I'll give you that because I was similar. In one of the first games I got for my 360 was Super Street Fighter 4, and like I said, in Street Fighter 4 I play Abel, and that's half circle, quarter circle all day.
I always play I play Zangief.
Oh man,
that's actually one of the things I was gonna say. I play almost exclusively on stick now, but I definitely started with pad because you gotta drop a bankroll on a stick right now.
You do, yeah.
But I still I can't do 360s, the Zangief's SPD motion. I cannot do that to save my life on a stick, but I can nail that every time on a pad. Mm-hmm. But that's like the only thing. I've pretty much learned everything else. But there's definitely, if you start with one and go to the other, there's a learning curve. You're not going to be able to do the things that you could just do 5 minutes ago.
For sure.
The muscle memory has to be
I have a preference. I mean, pretty much if we're talking 2D Capcom style, your 6-button fighter, I'm going to use a stick on it, and I'm going to do better than using a controller. But there are some your Mortal Kombats and your Injustices, where you're doing just straight directional inputs. I say a PS3 pad, a PS4 pad on Injustice or on Mortal Kombat X. I mean, I rarely see people using sticks on those, but when they do, I don't even understand it. I can't even comprehend it.
I can see that.
See, for me, it's really game to game because anything that's SNK always fight stick. I could not do SNK on a gamepad. I don't know what it is. My brain doesn't process it. But and Jared, you'll know what I'm talking about because you built a fucking MAME cabinet. I feel like the gate is really important on a gate stick.
They're incredibly important.
It is.
And I'm in the middle ground in where on my MVS I'm unfortunately using square gates, but they're new square gates, so the input still. I like the other ones more, but
I think someone who uses a circle gate should be crucified.
Oh God, but
Octo and Square, I understand Octos. I like Square. Octo, I understand. Circle gates, those people need to go.
Just get them out of here.
The problem is with Square gates, when Square gates get all old, it's so hard to do diagonals because you'll only hit one of the directions.
Well, that's the good thing about Square gates, and this is what I now see. I started out. I built a cabinet from just I think Hori stick. Was it Hori? I want to say Hori sticks and just bullshit off-brand buttons. And they were circular gates, and I got used to bat tops with a circular gate. And if you guys don't know what
Korean,
it's really gross. It's when I go back and play Windjammers now, it's like, oh, I can't.
Oh, Windjammers is my shit.
Oh, I have the MVS cartridge.
We have to play on Fight Game Windjammers sometime.
Oh, I am 100% down because if there's one thing I'm confident in, it's Windjammers.
Dude,
I'm not confident, but I'll play it.
We could literally do an entire episode on Windjammers.
And I would have so much fun doing it.
If you do, invite me back for that, because that shit is my jam.
Dude, I play Italy. I don't even fuck. I use those long-ass... Dude, use those long-ass orangutans.
We need to digress.
Sorry, okay.
We are digressing.
Windjammers a fighting game?
Yeah, back to gates. Sorry.
We are digressing. So I used when I first built the arcade cabinet, is my first real... I put in time with the arcade stick once, and it was back in the days of Street Fighter 4, the Mad Catz Tournament Edition, the white one.
Oh, yeah.
So I used that.
I
I didn't like it. This was during the re-release of Marvel 2 on 360, and I had gotten so not good. I had gotten so used to the 360 pad playing my characters that I couldn't execute worth a damn on the Tournament Edition stick, and I literally made GameStop take it back. I was like, I will not. I will not stand for this. And
I have a question about because this is actually one of the things that it's becoming much less of a stigma. I don't even hear people mention it anymore almost, but it used to be a thing 2, 3, 4 years ago. Pad versus fight stick, not just which do you prefer, because that's the question now, which do you prefer? It used to be back then, it's if you're taking this seriously, you have to play a stick.
Yeah. I think it's become less of an issue nowadays.
Did you ever think about that? I don't want to be a scrub. I can't.
Yeah, that's why I bought the Tournament Edition stick. I was like, I need to bring it to the next level.
$150 for a sticks.
Gotta have that gamer gear.
My.
Do you feel that's the whole thing, or do you see it like I was doing? It's definitely the stigma's basically gone.
the stigma is 100% gone, but pretty much what it came from is I saw people doing well with sticks. And for me, I was like, well, I've gotten as good as I am with this controller to take it up to that next level. I've hit the ceiling.
You barely got to get a stick.
Now I have to get the stick. That's how I thought. And then when I got it, I was like, well, maybe this is going to be a long learning process. So I just tried to get good with a controller again on Marvel 2. And nowadays, I probably couldn't even play Marvel with a controller. I got good at Marvel with a controller.
I've had this thing.
I got used to playing a circular gate because of the cabinet that I built. And it was now, I didn't know at the time. And like I told you, I had probably in the last 2 years is when I started taking fighting games seriously, competitively. And I remember I made a video about swapping out the gate. I have, Christ, what do I have? I completely forgot the brand of my damn stick.
Well, Hori.
Quamba. It was the Quamba.
Quambas are fantastic. I like the designs.
That's what Benny uses.
It's a simple
too,
design.
Quamba.
I like it's simple. It's a 360 stick, but I put I think a Cerberus board in there for everything.
I've never monkeyed around in the guts of a stick.
I'm real tech minded, so as soon as I bought it, I had to open it up and see because I had built sticks before, so I kind of had an idea for how to wire things up. So it was just kind of like a fun little experiment. But I made a video about changing to an octagonal gate. And like the comment section was like, "Holy shit, piece of shit!"
Gate preference is one of those things that it will get people frothing.
Yeah, the stigma hasn't gone away on gate preferences.
On gates? Oh, absolutely not. On controllers, yeah, because back in the day, basically, yeah, you played on stick. But that's because fighting games started in the arcades, so that's what people were used to. It's like, I went down to my local arcade every weekend for 4 years. Yeah, I want to play a stick when I play at home because that's what I'm used to. But now it's like most people, you even say you only started taking it seriously in the past few years. Some people have only really gotten into it in any level in the past couple of years where they're probably going to just have bought it for their console, PlayStation or Xbox, and they play on pad because you're not, this isn't like Guitar Hero or Rock Band. You can just play it with your controller. It's totally fine. And now, people used to be like, oh, you play on a pad? What are you, some scrub? You never take this seriously. Except for Zangief players.
Yeah.
Zangief players always played on pads because of shenanigans with walk-up 720s and reaching their thumb over. And it's just, it's fast. It's less distance to do this with your thumb than to do this with your wrist.
Yeah, exactly. No,
yes, other than Zangief characters or players, you never really saw sticks a lot, but now you see pads all the time, and you see, you see all the stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. One fighting game I like a lot and will not play on a gamepad is Skullgirls. I think Skullgirls, I think, is a really interesting example. Dubious, have you ever played it?
That's actually one I've never touched before.
Oh my god, dude! You need to play it next time we hang out. You would absolutely love that fighting game.
Marvel 2 of balanced fighting games.
So. Well, that's what it is. I like the story of its development because they're like, hey, we're just going to take a bunch of champions from a bunch of different fucking fighting games, and we're going to make our own fighting game that's kind of really competitively minded, and all the characters will have different feels and shit. And I just love that game. You know what I mean? And I just can't imagine playing it on a stick.
I'll also say, if you're into other fighting games too, it'll make sense. Think of the way the game is balanced. I mean, it's probably different now, but the lead developer of that game is a grappler player.
Oh, that makes sense. You can ask Jared,
absolute sense, doesn't it?
He threw a big fighting game tournament at his house when I was out there for my birthday, and I fucking shit-housed his friends with Cerebella. I was like, I would have put him in the dirt.
I can't play it.
Skullgirls is Mike Z's baby, and I don't know if he ever really got big into Street Fighter, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he played Zangief. But he was always big into like BlazBlue, and he played Tager. He played Potemkin back in Guilty Gear. He's always the dude's just a grappling. He's a grappler at heart, and you could tell his idea of balance in that game. He's like, I want to make grapplers viable.
Yeah,
not overpowered. He just definitely wants to make them playable, and you could definitely, like I said, look at that game through the eyes of a grappler player. It starts to make a lot of sense.
It's probably why I liked it so much. I don't like. Oh my god! Like I could never do Zangief because I'm not that crazy into it. You know what I mean? But like half circle's my shit. I get down on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Lately, I've been into more grappling. I think I used to hate grappling characters. I used to go like characters like what was his face? From Street Fighter 4, the guy, was he from France?
Abel.
I started off trying Abel. I was like, because this guy aesthetically, he looked kind of cool, and I wanted to get good with him. I was like, this is garbage. I can't do it. And it was until Street Fighter V picking up Mika, and I was like, okay, maybe I can roll with this style of gameplay a little bit.
You know what series has some awesome grapplers is the Dead or Alive games.
Dead or Alive is a strange breed.
That's actually like these days. I think Dead or Alive 5 Last Bout is like that's my fighting game these days. That's like what I play.
Dead or Alive has had to conquer some demons. Mm-hmm. When you say Dead or Alive, the first thing most people think of is beach volleyball and jiggle physics.
Yeah,
and yeah, the game is one of the most fan service heavy games out there, and
it can be pretty fucking fun and deep.
It is. It's not a bad game. It's definitely not bad for a 3D fighter. I mean, because how many 3D fighters really have to compete with it? Let's be fair. There's Dead or Alive, Tekken, Virtua Fighter,
Pokken,
Soul Calibur.
To be fair, Pokken Tournament, I actually really do like arena fighters. What is that game for the Dreamcast? I'm blanking. Power Stone.
Power Stone. Oh, Power Stone.
Those games are fucking sick. Pokken Tournament in a lot of ways reminds me of Power Stone.
Pokken Tournament has the depth that you could take it. I haven't played it, but I watch people play Pokken, and what I like to do is I like to take a fighting game and then watch like a deep kind of mechanics analysis of the game and maybe like a beginner's tutorial just to like get an idea for it. And I think that game has the depth where you could take that competitively. I think it's still shallow compared to other fighting games, but definitely deep for the kind of people that are going to play Pokken.
A lot deeper than I would have expected it to be. It did impress me. It's like, oh, I expected this to be like one button, just mash your face on it.
Yeah, and it's got some interesting mechanics.
It's actually got some legit shit.
Okay, to be fair though, Dive Kick is fantastically balanced. If we want to talk about literally 2-button fighting games, I'm sorry, I had to throw it in there.
That game can go fuck itself.
We started talking about Evo. We ended up at Dive Kick. I don't
know. Well, we got into controller.
Dive Kick has technically been at Evo, so.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Getting back to Evo though, I mean, Pokken Tournament actually had a $21,000 prize pool, almost 22.
That was interesting.
Pretty surprising in my opinion. I think everything new. Yeah, I think everything about that game has been surprising. It was a game that like I heard about it and it's like, okay, that sounds interesting. A Pokemon fighting game by the people who did Tekken. This could be, I'll look into it maybe. And then nobody really talked about it. I know it did pretty well in the arcades in Japan, but there wasn't really a whole lot of buildup over here in the U.S. And then all of a sudden it was just like fucking out, and I still haven't picked it up for my Wii U.
I have a Wii U, and I really haven't. I don't really care about Pokemon. I know, but it's like it's one of those games I'll look at and be like, oh, that's a lot better than I expected it to be, and I still have no intention of ever playing it. To be fair.
I'm in the same.
I respect it, but it's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I would like to play it. I can't justify spending a full price tag on it.
I definitely thought it was going to be a lot dumber and just worse than it is. Then I saw it, it's like, oh shit, they actually they gave a shit when they made this game. They really did try. It shows. I do like the little Lucha Libre Pikachu though. That thing is hilarious.
Yeah, you got some fun in, right? But I'm looking at the division of prize pools between all the Evo games that were this year, right? And the gap between first and second place is so fucking gigantic. Because the largest pool was Street Fighter V, right? Had 5,000 entries, and the prize pool was 100,000. And then the next was Mortal Kombat XL, which had 700 entries and was a $57,000 prize pool.
Well, but to be fair, first Evo with the brand new Street Fighter.
Yeah,
Street Fighter's always top dog, but this is the first one with the new game.
And it came in with hype of a brand new game, and plus everybody in the FGC was pimping it.
Yeah, Capcom was pushing the shit out of this game the way they've never done. Which is funny that they used Evo as a way to hype up their own Capcom Pro Tour tournament.
Yeah, the Capcom Pro Tour, exactly.
Clearly, Capcom wants the Pro Tour to be bigger than Evo. Obviously, they want that to happen. And I'm sorry, it's just not going to. You can push as much as you want, Capcom. You don't have the entire community behind you the way they're behind Evo.
No, especially since you don't have the
Because Evo's everyone, everything.
Yeah, it's just a huge variety of fighting games, and CPT is just a little less.
Street Fighter. Hope you like it. Some people are like, no, I don't like Street Fighter, but I'll play the shit out of some anime fighters or whatever. I'll play the shit out of Marvel. It's like, yeah, I get it, Capcom. You're really trying, but you're not Blizzard.
Yeah. A lot of companies misjudge their good faith. I just find it really interesting because I like Mortal Kombat games, especially a lot of the modern Mortal Kombat games. I actually think they've done a really good job with them. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get Mortal Kombat X, and I still haven't picked it up because, once again, I had a hard time justifying paying $60 for a Mortal Kombat game. And, like, I know it's funny that we went over this conversation, and, like, I am, in ideals in favor of them charging $60 for a fighting game. I have no issues with that when I think about it. But I just had such a hard time spending any money on it, so I haven't played it, and I'd actually really like to pick up XL since it has everything.
I think cool. One of the things that goes into that is when it comes to a fighting game, paying full price, full $60 for it, is it's got to be a game that you want to actually play.
Yeah, and you don't know beforehand.
Kind of want to play a little, not really seriously, but you really like, I actually care if I'm good at this game or not.
Yeah.
Because Mortal Kombat, it has that big story. If that's your thing, it's really good. But if you don't actually give a shit about the game itself, like really, like I want to play this game. I want to play Mortal Kombat. I want to play it. Then it's hard to justify that price tag.
Yeah, especially if you don't know how it handles. I mean, if you're coming from any other fighting game, combo timing and inputs are insanely different from Guilty Gear to Street Fighter V to Mortal Kombat.
I think that segues into another thing I wanted to bring up is because we're mentioning fighting games, and fighting games is a really blanket term.
Yeah.
And every fighting game, even just in their own little way, is a lot different from each other. Let's go to like the two big ones: 3D fighters versus 2D fighters.
God, that is a tough fucking argument.
It's not really so much argument. It's like there's a huge difference between the two.
I would have to say I land on the 2D spectrum. I can't play most 3D fighters, and the one that I can play really well is not even. People don't even consider it a fucking game anymore.
Please say Bloody Roar. It would make me smile so much.
But you're so damn close. Is King of Fighters? Oh Christ!
Maximum Impact.
Maximum Impact. Maximum
Dude,
Impact.
Josh's face right now. Oh my god!
Holy shit! You want to talk about how to do a 3D fighter like a 2D fighter? Maximum Impact version 2. Oh, forget about it.
Oh Jesus, that fucking game. I barely remember that game. I've played it, and I remember. It does play like a 2D fighter because sidestepping basically doesn't exist.
Yeah, you may as well not do it. And combos are just input.
Combos are
2D fighter.
So easy.
They were super easy, and not only were they easy, juggling was easy. So holy shit.
Picked a friend of mine brought it over once. This is after I've been playing, fighting games for a while, and I picked Kula. I just like Kula. And I comboed for half his HP, like the first match we ever played, and I was
especially with that finisher with the special where she like slides across and fucking hits you with the ice that comes out of the ground. And
the giant ice spike. Yeah, I just like, hey, I kind of know some Kula combos in actual King of Fighters, and then I was like juggle them off a wall. I was like, oh shit, wonder if I could just like keep this going and then go into this and do this and then super. And I was like, everything I thought would worked.
Input forgiveness in that game is so insane.
But the thing I
do a quarter circle and wait a second and then hit a button counts as an input.
The thing I don't know if I can forgive that game for. Have you ever seen the alternate costumes?
I can't say I'm familiar with them.
They are the worst thing I've ever fucking seen in my life. Oh, they were atrocious.
I mean, I don't use. This is going to be a total argument unto itself. I don't really use alternate costumes in just about any fighting game. I hate them.
I do. It depends on what they are, though. I mean, I don't buy any of them. I only buy the ones that I like. And Capcom has no idea how to make alternate costumes.
That's a fact.
They just like some shit.
There's
throw
so
it on
many
the
on the Dead or Alive games.
Yeah, there is.
That actually, this is going back a little ways, but I mentioned fan service and Dead or Alive being synonymous. With Dead or Alive 5, the Dead or Alive team tried really, really hard to get away from the fan service thing and actually make it a legit serious fighting game, which they did pretty well for a while. Then people started losing interest in the game, and they just said fuck it, open the floodgates, and all the DLC costumes came out, all the swimsuit costumes. They put the jiggle slider back in. It's an option.
Hell yeah.
Jiggle physics is a
Finally.
slider. It goes from not a whole lot of jiggle to this is probably going to break my chick's nose.
Well, here's
Fucking
the problem.
misogyny.
Here's the problem with the jiggle
like
slider
900.
is that it exists. It should be cranked to maximum and then grayed out in the options screen.
I mean, well, that's the thing.
There's male privilege.
They wanted to get rid of that stigma that they had, and then they're like, "Fuck it, you know what? We do need to make money. We're a company. We need to push
Yeah.
these units. So fuck it, yeah. Come out with 9 different swimsuit packs. Put the jiggle slider back in, and just tits ahoy.
See, since we're talking about 2D
They have
versus
made money from it.
I've noticed that the switch to 3. A lot of these games are going 3D on a 2D plane now, so they can move the camera around for specials like Street Fighter 4s
Also,
and 5s.
sprites are incredibly expensive to animate.
Yeah, and I mean,
a game like Third Strike could never be made in this day and age.
it makes sense.
It
and
would
even
cost
Guilty Gear has gone into a 3D cell shaded.
Guilty Gear has done it amazingly well, though.
Yeah,
it's
for
a
the
great
record, I was going to bring it up in this argument, and I'll let you continue, but for the record, fucking love Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue.
Yeah,
Like, just
they're
those
great.
games are so fun.
And Xrd looks insane.
Oh, it does.
It's
That's
2D sprites for as far as your mind can comprehend. Then the camera starts moving around them. It's mind blowing how they were
They
able
actually
to do that.
kind of did the same technique with King of Fighters 13.
Yeah,
Basically, they animated them as 3D models because that's way cheaper than hand sprite animation. And then they just kind of like tweak each individual frame and just sort of overlay it to make it look like a 2D sprite. And it ends up working really well and costs like way less than animating.
and it looks beautiful.
Is-
But I've noticed ever since
I
the
read
Switch
this big
to-
article about Xrd and how they did that animation stuff and the effort and like they came up with brand new techniques and had to write their own modeling software and shit.
I believe it. That's when I first saw it. I didn't understand how it was even possible.
That game is gorgeous.
Yeah, like you couldn't convince me through screenshots that these weren't hand drawn sprites. You just couldn't do it. It was just insanity. But I think I've noticed since the move to your 3D characters on 2D planes, fighting games have gotten slower, more fluid for sure, but much. I mean, if you take still to this day, Japanese 2D fighters that are coming out, your Melty Blood style games, and your was it Chaos Code that's out on PS3 and PS4 right now. I still, I don't say prefer those type of games, but I find that they're a little more, I guess, fun. They're a little more fast and frenetic. You can.
It's fun when fighting games are all about pressing buttons, and it's fun when the game lets you press buttons
and lets you feel good about. You can pull off a nice combo and timing in a lot of these 3D, 2D fighters, like Street Fighter 5 timing. A lot of people were like, "Oh, there's 3 frames of forgiveness." It literally makes combo execution harder in Street Fighter 5 than it was for me in any other fighting game because through forgiveness, combos flow in such a slow manner that I can't tap out a combo like I used to. In Street Fighter 4, comboing with fucking Dudley, holy shit, that was goddamn a piano exercise. And now when I play with like Armika, it's like bop, poop, poop, bam, bop. It's hard to train your mind.
Having come from 4 where the execution requirements were pretty strict. Playing 5, I'll be like halfway through the combo and realize that I overwrote my button at some point, and I totally missed the button after it a lot quicker. Yeah, I gotta slow it down a little.
Stop. Especially with your jump-ins. With my jump-ins, timing a jump-in to like the next linked input is insanely hard. Coming from Street Fighter 4, it took me a long time to get my jump-ins to where I could combo because it would just be, all right, jump heavy kick, boom, medium punch immediately.
Yeah,
and that just wasn't
you just hit as soon as you see the jump in hit, you go into it.
Yeah, it's
like you almost want to wait. You're like, oh, I hit him too high with the jump in. I actually can't even combo it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah,
but this is the crazy part is if you go from any of the alphas or say even Third Strike to Street Fighter 4. It's a very slow-moving game, especially vanilla Street Fighter 4. It was very slow-moving.
Hear me out.
Go ahead.
I have a theory on it, and
it might be wrong. You guys can disagree with me. This is my theory, okay? And I think it's a big just shift in the way that fighting games were conceptualized. Because when we look at early 2D fighters, right, they're really fast-paced. They're really just about generally. I mean, you have Mortal Kombat, it's whatever, but it's generally about just slamming buttons into your opponent's face and just face the shit out of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when we start seeing 3D fighting games, we start seeing Tekken, we start seeing Soul Calibur, things like that. It's a lot more reflexive as opposed to aggressive. It's a lot more about utilizing the 3D space, exploring the 3D space. You know what I mean? Really putting each move in a move set into an applicable situation. It's not just fucking facing people. So we see fighting games go back to 2D, things like Street Fighter 4 and things like that. And instead of just, who can combo faster without breaking, it's once again about this combo, this idea of getting combo breakers in and 3 second. It's more about interaction than it is about just hitting the person to fucking death.
I think more than that, I think you hit on a subject that definitely describes it. I think they hit a ceiling for 2D fighters to where it was getting to a point where just whoever was inputting the quickest was getting people stuck in combos, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. Even in games like Guilty, Xrd plays a lot slower, so it actually Xrd is a very good combination of that slow and fast style. But in Japanese 2D fighters, it was just who was executing fastest, because these combos were accepting inputs at an insane rate, and you can get somebody locked into a 40-hit combo, taking away 35-40% of their life bar just off of a simple one-hit confirm. And I think fighting games slowed down to increase the difficulty of executing.
It makes you
combos.
actually play your opponent.
Yeah, as opposed to executing combos, now you're playing an opponent who's going to react to your moves. Whereas before, especially in Marvel 2, it was about dashing up, short jumping, jumping in with a heavy, and then you hit confirm. All right, so now you've got a guaranteed 35. If you're talking Marvel 3, then you've already won. You've won the match.
Killed the character,
one hit confirm. That's it. That's the end of the fucking character.
That's. I mean, they call them one-touch kill characters.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like
Doctor Doom.
Those combos
Phoenix.
are really cool the first time you see them.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, look at this combo. Oh, he's still going. Oh, he's still going. This combo's still going. This combo's still going. Oh my god, he killed the character just off of one hit. Holy shit, that's so cool. Then you see it 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 50 times. You're like, oh my, okay, he hit him. You just fucking make the character explode and get to the next actual interaction.
Yeah, I think that's when the fighting game scene started to see this decline in execution and this rise in actually mental meta games, because
spacing and footsies
actually became a thing that you did.
Yeah.
I know
Street Fighter have always existed even back then, like Samurai Showdown series. Yeah. I mean, they've never been super popular games, but there are games that are really slow, and it's all about an individual hit can often do more damage than a combo. Yeah. If you just get the right hit, you said you love Showdown.
I play 4 all the time. Seriously,
just pick example would be like how Maru or Genjiro gets a counter slash heavy, like a counter hit heavy slash. That's like a quarter of your HP there. You're not going to do a combo that does that much damage.
And I mean, your rage bar gets full too, and you just tap somebody, and a full fucking health bar just fucking drops.
And that game's all about when do I press the button, what button do I press, and where. Yeah, so it's actually about looking at your opponent instead of saying, okay, I got this hit, I'm going to get my combo now.
I think 2D fighters hit a point where it was just nothing but execution and just memorization of the combos. And I think Marvel 3 is the antithesis of what modern fighting games are, and I think that's why. Is because people noticed, Dr. Doom can OTG and do that dash jump nonstop, and it's Marvel 3 and Marvel 2 were a game of fair infinites. You know what I mean? Like, you got locked in, you knew your character was gone. All right, well, what am I going to do? You had an entire life bar worth of combo to figure out what you were going to do when eventually it lets you bring in fucking Sentinel. And that's why Marvel 3 is such a boring game to watch at any fighting game competition. Oh, it's fun. I wonder who they're going to pick. Oh, it's Doom, Sentinel, and fucking, I don't know, Strider. That was it. There's 4 characters to play.
All about Zero May Cry teams.
There's 4 4 characters that you can play in Marvel and do anything. That's all there is to it. And I don't play any of them. I play Trish.
Yeah.
Trish is good as shit. Holy shit, she is underutilized.
That's actually, I actually do watch Marvel 3. Like, those are some of my favorite Evo times, is watching Marvel 3.
Really?
But I always like the people who play the unorthodox characters. I hate Morrigan Doom.
Yes.
I hate Zero in any incarnation. Like,
Zero's cancer. Zero's absolute cancer.
I like Doctor Doom as a character, but clearly he is awful in that game. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the best character. He's the best assist. He's just amazing. I hate seeing him all the time. You start to feel resentment to these characters you see all the time. You're like, God, pick someone else.
Yeah,
So
I'm
really
so tired of every
weird
single
games.
team is a Sentinel, and it's fucking ridiculous. Oh, OTG from full screen? Yeah, that's fucking fair, right?
Yeah,
And then,
that's why I root so hard for like Kane Blue River, who plays the big body team, plays Hulk and Hagar. Like,
I see a lot of Hagar, but Hulk, you don't really see a lot of
And
people beating ass.
I love like there was a while ago, it's like 2, 3, 4 years ago in Evo, I think it's 3. There's a guy named Fruitsy, he's a Mexican player, played like Captain America and MODOK, and he made it to, like, he got like 4th place. I know he at least made it to top 8. I don't remember exactly where he finished, but he had like Captain America, MODOK, and I can't remember his other. Usually you have one bullshit character. I think he had like Doctor Doom.
As long as I have Phoenix Wright, I'm happy. It wouldn't be too uncommon to see like Phoenix Wright Magneto. Like,
I just love you always root for the guy that plays the unorthodox team, because you're like, oh yeah, I've seen 1,000 Dooms. I've seen
Which, bringing it back to Evo, is why I was actually rooting for fucking Fudo, because he was playing a killer Armika, and I just didn't see that coming.
I found that hard to do because Fudo was my boy back in 4 because he played Fei Long. I played Fei Long, so I was like, oh, this dude's awesome. But I love Infiltration too. That dude is just silly and hilarious.
Yeah, he's fun to watch, like his actual personality.
Why?
Yeah, that was crazy because, like I said, I haven't actually gotten to play Street Fighter V yet, but watching Nash play was like, wow, that is such a fucking cool design. Like,
yeah, he's a killer. He's fucking awesome as a character, and using his fucking critical art as the anti-air, genius. I love it so fucking much.
I hate Nash because everybody's okay. You know, as far as we're going back to the tier list thing, but everyone's like, oh, Chun-Li's the best character in 5. I disagree.
No, yeah, I don't think so.
It's Nash, hands down.
I think Nash is definitely the most popular, which leads to people getting to know his intricacies a little more. But I think with Street Fighter V,
that doesn't stop him from winning tournament. Like, half of top 8 was Nash's.
Yeah,
and people are like, no, Nash is mid tier. He's a solid character, but he's not top tier. Really, because like every single fighting game, every single major for Street Fighter 4 or 5 has had at least one Nash.
There's always a shit ton of Nashes. I watched, K-Brad.
A lot of people will like point like, oh no, it's the player. And yeah, Infiltration, he's amazing in every game he plays. Tokido is amazing in every game he plays. But I
don't think it's so much the player. I think Street Fighter V is different with its tier list, because its tier list is constantly evolving, and it doesn't have to do with a single player or a single character. I think Street Fighter V's tier list is matchups. I think it really is. Who wins what match? It's what that guy K-Brad said. He said, "Oh, who do you think is top tier? Who's the other guy playing?" You know, like that's exactly how Street Fighter V's tier list is.
I will say, I just want to gloat a little bit. I called the Evo winner. I knew Infiltration was going to win Evo, like before Evo ever even happened. I was like, he's obviously going to win. Like, he's been winning every single major he goes to. He's going to win Evo, hands down, no problem. Yeah. I thought it was going to be him versus Tokido, because that's what every single major that they go to has been. It's been Infiltration versus Tokido for grand finals, like 6 majors in a row. And Tokido didn't even make top 8.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, there goes that prediction, but Infiltration's still going to win.
It was an odd top 8 altogether. Seeing Long Island Joe in there was super interesting.
That is not the one American, because it's always one American makes it.
Yeah.
That was not the one people were expecting.
No, not at all. And you know, the crazy thing is, I mean, he's good, but he came out of fucking nowhere.
He's always been there. He's always been good. He's never quite broken that level.
No, not at all. And he killed it while he was there. He showed solid execution, and he was just so you could tell he didn't expect to be there as much as we didn't expect him to be there. Every single match, he was just like bowing and shaking hands at the end of every single.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah, he's like I've seen him in a lot of other things. I've seen him in terms of I remember this was years and years ago. He was playing at some local tournament, and they just like jokingly gave him like the microphone, and he commented it on his own game as he was playing. He's sitting there playing the other dude giving a running commentary. Which if you've ever played a fighting game, try to do that. Try to talk to someone else or talk to something about it while playing.
Yeah, any competition. Like
I can do it because I play Armika, and there's a lot of time spent waiting for a rope toss to come back around screen. I'm that fucking dick. Ever since the game came out, when the game first started showing and I was playing the betas, I was like, Cammy, that's it. That's going to be my girl. I could tell by the way she moves, and I liked her links, and now I can barely play a Cammy. I just picked up Armika just joking around. Holy shit, I love her. And everybody started talking shit, and they're like, oh, fucking Armika. She was just made for noobs. And then like Guile came out, who was a goddamn... God, fuck Guile.
I hate playing Guile.
It's the worst.
So he's just like, I can block literally everything.
Yeah, and what are you gonna do? He's charging crouch the entire time. Are you gonna fucking jump for a cross up? No, because he's getting the flash kick. It doesn't matter. Or are you gonna dash up? Flash kick hits forward. What the fuck are you gonna do? It's ridiculous.
I was pretty before 5 came out. I was pretty sure I was gonna play Bison. Because like I loved the way he looked, like the way he walked with his arms crossed. I'm like, oh, that is so awesome.
His animations are cool as fuck.
And I saw Laura. When Laura came out, I was like, because she reminds me of Blue Mary in King of Fighters, which I love Blue Mary in King of Fighters.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, she's like that rushdown like pseudo grappler. That's my jam. Boom, there's my main. And yeah, it turns out I love playing Laura. I can't play Bison for shit.
See, I that's why I really want to eventually pick up Street Fighter V is I love semi-grapplers. Like the whole reason I got into Abel is because it wasn't that he had grapple potential. It was just he had that like 3-frame invulnerability. And I was like, somebody actually has that? That's like just straight up in the game. Like
half the characters in 5 seem to have some kind of command throw at least.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, God. They really do. It's true.
You probably love the game.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to play it. I just haven't got the chance to.
It's a very different fighting game. I haven't played a fighting game like Street Fighter V ever.
I actually will say, this is one thing, I mean, this may not be a popular opinion, but this is what I would think. Honestly, I kind of get bored when I watch Street Fighter V. Like, compared to 4 or Third Strike, I find 5 is probably the most boring Street Fighter to watch. But it's so much fun to play.
It's very fun to play. I can see where you're coming from, though, because there's not as much variety as far... I mean... You have your trusty combos. It doesn't seem like there's a shit ton of leeway outside of what the programmers programmed in for you to be able to do. It
doesn't quite have freedom, or like in Street Fighter 4 especially. Yeah, you had these these max efficiency combos, these max damage combos, but you couldn't always get that setup. Sometimes you just got to get the hit you can get, and just get the follow up you can get. So you did have to know all these other options you had to do. So the game kind of evolved around a lot of that, but I don't know. Just for some reason,
I get kind of bored, especially if you cut your teeth on Street Fighter 4 competitively. You had a lot more options movement wise and getting out of moves. As far as Street Fighter 5 goes, once you're locked in for that, I mean, 4 hits does a lot in Street Fighter 5 compared to Street Fighter 4, but those 4 hits tend to be the most used combo. Like you saw Nash play. Donovan, you probably saw the same exact combos over and over again, whereas in Street Fighter 4 it's more situational. But that's why Street Fighter 5 is so different. Street Fighter 5 is very preemptive. It's like it's almost like it's weird to see people tech throws in Street Fighter 5 because Street Fighter 5 seems like if somebody's up near you, like you have to know they're going to throw you before they do, whereas in Street Fighter 4 you could sort of tech a throw just on instinct. Or Street Fighter 5
crouch teching and shit like that also.
Yeah, like Street Fighter 5 is a very preemptive game. You have to know 3 moves ahead what's going to happen. It's just a really weird game.
I don't know. I'll admit that there was a lot of repetition in the matches I saw, but out of all of the finals, and that was the ones I watched were Street Fighter 5, Melee, Mortal Kombat XL, Killer Instinct, Smash Brothers, all those ones, Pokken Tournament, etc., etc. The Street Fighter 5 tournament that final match just felt so alive.
It was
killer. I know it was only a handful of like 2 or 3 combos, but that match was so clean, technically speaking.
The people, I mean, also just having that many people, like every time you saw someone, you could hear them almost. Like someone got a hit, started getting a combo, you just hear.
That's the best part about Evo.
You gotta have that Oh, that's what makes it so much fun to watch.
Someone pulls off something really cool looking, and the crowd goes fucking wild. And me and my wife watched it streaming, and we were getting it. I mean, my wife only recently started just watching fighting games, just because it just is a fun kind of thing to experience. She got into Gutex's Excellent Adventures.
I want to bring it back to that. I'm hearing something weird, so I really need to go check this out. I hate to have to bail, but I'll be gone for like a couple minutes.
If this is the last time we see him, it'd be interesting.
You guys keep, yeah. If my thing suddenly goes dark, the house might be burning down. I'm not sure. But I'll pop it back.
We'll put an animated GIF over you. It'll be great.
If you don't make it back, no worries. But yeah, Josine watching Evo.
Yeah, she was watching it, and she started getting hyped up. You know what I mean? Especially, it was cool because Long Island Joe was, he was an American, so she was kind of rooting for him. And she was getting super hyped, and it was just because the crowd reaction to a well-executed, like 3 or 4 hit string is just so massive, you can't help but just like get filled up with fucking hype.
I think that's just competitive gaming, period, man. Like, all the events I've ever worked, I absolutely love that feeling, man. Whether I'm in the crowd, if I'm working press, or I'm on stage competing, like, just the environment just feels so alive. And watching that Street Fighter match, it just, because all the other ones, they felt like fights, and this could just be with the way it sounds like Street Fighter V is designed, but it felt like a dance. Like, it didn't really look like anybody ever made a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, it was just combos just seamlessly flowing into combos. Like, it looked gorgeous.
Street Fighter V is a very fluid game. To actually pull off the combos, it's a more methodical pace, whereas like in a lot of games you would just be mashing something out. In Street Fighter V, you really got to kind of just get timing down. So that's why it's interesting to see, once you play Street Fighter V and watch those matches, it's interesting to see, like you said, execution was like on 100%. They were nailing all these combos, and these are timing strings that aren't just like let's say you go boom, half second boom, or quarter of a millisecond, boom, 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 and you maintain the same timing. A lot of these combos are like bam, bam, wait a second, boom, take it. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to see people nail these combos every single time, because I'm still having problems nailing really simple combos because the timing is so thick and methodical. It's interesting.
But I guess to sort of come back around and wrap the whole thing up, I guess I would absolutely say that the competitive fighting scene is getting bigger, and I think the genres are getting more popular. It feels like it's one of those things where, since video games are being taken more seriously as a competitive thing at all, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then it really feels like fighting games are doing it, because we're seeing these people with these high levels of play. We're seeing these people with high mechanical skill. So competitive fighting games are just going to keep going because it's just overall impressive, and there's not that stigma anymore.
Yeah, the stigma's gone. This is the crazy thing, and this kind of bleeds into that fact, is that the fighting game scene is a lot different than even back when I was preteens. To me, still to that, at that point, video games were a very underground niche kind of thing. So I played, a lot of even underground games for the underground video game scene, a lot of RPGs and survival horror games and stuff. And then I got to I saw the fighting game scene. I started seeing games like Marvel 2, and I would start, instead of watching Marvel 2, I would see who was playing, and the crowd was not your nerdy basement dwelling fucking antisocial person. It was dudes into hip hop with like basketball jerseys. I was like, dude, this is video games. This is not what we see.
That's something I wanted to bring up too. Was fighting games are way different than any other competitive game I've ever seen.
It feels really like
in a lot of ways, and this is kind of goes into the other thing. Like, right now, one of the big things right now is growing is esports. League of Legends has these massive tournaments that are filling stadiums. Dota has these massive $22 million prize pool.
That's real fucking
tournaments.
Money.
And then, but even before these existed, even before Dota existed, even as the mod, StarCraft was huge in Korea. Everybody remembers those. It's like, oh, look at these crazy Koreans with their StarCraft, and it's like a giant football stadium with pyrotechnics. It's what we have for the Super Bowl, they have for StarCraft, and we were like, oh, that's just so crazy. That's such a weird Asian thing, whatever. And now we're right there with Dota and League. But fighting games, they're starting to get esports like that. They're starting to get these big stadiums, and Evo gets bigger and bigger every year. These other majors are starting to get huge, and instead of just being in some guy's basement, or they're renting out hotel ballrooms, and now it's like, oh, there's tournaments every month or every couple months that are huge. They have thousands of players in every one of them. But as far as like the atmosphere, one of the things that drew me to fighting games over like League or Dota, as far as competitive and watching it as a spectator, fighting games always kind of had this like raw, dirty feel to it. Sort of is a lot more real. You get guys on the mic like Yipes, who they swear. They're not just talking about, obviously this is the best thing to do in this scenario, and he needs to be looking for this kind of counter hit. No, he's just kind of like, yo, that dude just got punched in his head. Yeah, and you get those hype, man, and it's so
different scene, man. It's so crazy.
It is, and also I honestly think it is the most diverse scene of any competitive fighting game.
I can honestly agree with that. I'm always really surprised seeing the different kinds of people on stage.
There are. It is a true rainbow. It is every single person from every culture, every walk of life.
Well, I think Bowers in chat summed it up pretty well in that fighting games are pick up and play. I think that's honestly the biggest things about them is like fighting games as a genre are pretty much like the epitome of easy to pick up, hard to master.
Yes. Yeah. Which actually is a great segue into the other thing I wanted to bring up is why aren't fighting games more popular? I have a theory, but basically why don't more people one of the most popular games in the world right now is League of Legends, just by sheer number of players. And Dota's not too far behind it, but it's a lot of MOBAs. MOBAs are like rating top dog, and then you got first-person shooters, which FPS has been popular for a while, but they've really kind of started to peak with like Overwatch and CS:GO.
CS:GO, yeah.
Even the original Counter-Strike wasn't anywhere close to as popular as CS:GO is now.
Yeah.
So, but why not fighting games? Well, I have a theory, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
My 2 cents real quick, just because I'll throw it in, and I want to hear Dubious if he's got an opinion on it too.
Yeah, I want to hear everyone's.
But my 2 cents on it is it's this real lightning in a bottle sort of deal. Like, it's really hard to specifically be like, it's this one thing in particular, but when there's a package that just does so many things right, like in League of Legends, it hits that real sweet spot for accessibility in that, it's not Heroes of the Storm, which is, no single-player focus, or Dota, where you get punished if you're not a mechanical god, you know what I mean? And, we look at CS:GO, and once again, it's just like that right combination of approachable and play, fun to play.
It's not too fast. It's not like Tribes or Unreal Tournament, but it's not like Halo or one of those other slower.
Exactly. So I think
it's that. Yeah, I get you.
With fighting games, like, they're so varied, because if we look at, like, Tekken versus Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat, like, they're the same genre, but share nothing in terms of mechanics and play.
One dude hits the other dude through various means. That's about where the similarities end.
Yeah, I think eventually somebody, and maybe it's Street Fighter V looking at this EVO tournament, but somebody at some point will release a game that'll have that, like, lightning in a bottle effect. And whenever they do, that's when like competitive fighting is just gonna fucking explode.
So when Blizzard comes out with their fighting game.
Yeah, when Blizzard comes out with their fighter, I
would play that honestly because they're good at characters.
I don't think I don't see that in fighting games future. I don't see that accessibility peak.
I agree with you, but I want to hear what Dubious says first.
I do want to hear more.
I think that.
Well, I would say like the reason that they're not as popular as they could be. I mean, they're pretty inaccessible for people that like aren't into them.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And half the time,
I think you and I are on the same page.
I've got stacks of like fighting games for like every console, and like, I mean, yeah, you can pick it up and play it, but at the same time, it's like, dude, I'm about to sit down and play a fighting game. Like, that's some serious shit, dude.
That's the quote for this podcast. ... Dude, I'm about to sit down and play a fighting game. ... Yeah, no, I agree.
Dude, seriously, I'm about to start a fight game. Oh God, I thought you said you had to go to the hospital. It feels like it. I might.
I agree. Just to word it differently, but the same exact sentiment. Fighting games are very daunting, and they were for me. even though I played fighting games, like I said, I played fighting games mostly for the sprite art. I used to play games to look at how beautiful the art was. You know what I mean? I picked up Symphony of the Night because I saw like the sprites were being scaled really big, and I was like, oh, that's killer. But but this is the thing about fighting games compared to anything else. You could pick up Symphony of the Night and learn it within 10 minutes and play the game, and then the rest of the game requires, are you willing to continue playing it? Whereas with fighting games, if you pick it up and you see like, oh, 2-hit combo, you feel like a piece of shit. You've just disappointed both of your fucking parents. Oh, 2-hit combo, that's nice. That's why you went to college, huh? Like,
what a fucking scrub. Good job.
That's what fighting games feel like until you get to the level where you can execute, to where you can actually make a combo, and if you can feel it inside you. Once you get to the point where you're like, bam, bam, boom, bam, yeah, all right, now I feel good about myself now, and it takes a long time to get to that point. And once you get to a certain point, you can pick up almost any fighting game, and in like an hour and a half or so, get to that point again. But the first time getting to that point for me, which was Marvel 2 re-release, and when I started actually being like, whoa, I could actually get deeper with these games.
I don't just have to button mash. I can actually know what I'm doing.
It probably took me a solid 9 months to a year to get to a point where I could execute combos and understand the deeper mechanics of the game. And I was playing Marvel 2 for fuck's sake. You would get to a point
deeper
where
mechanics.
with every online match, you would get to the point where I played Cammy all the time, and I used her fucking Ultimate Spider bullshit that she does, cling to the wall. I waited for a character to come out from the roster, and then boom, Ultimate Spider, get him caught in that, and you know what I mean? Like, I would default to the easier. That's probably why it took me so long, is because you can default to the easier way of playing. But with fighting games, as someone coming in new, and like I said, I just started, so I still kind of flash that mentality. It is really daunting. When I see a new game that looks really hard, like let's say like a new character on like Guilty Gear, and they have a deeper mechanic than just they have combos to execute, like they have, let's say, Killer Instinct Fulgore. With Fulgore, you have to worry about meter management on the bottom and charging his little reactor core and using it up. Or with what's the skeleton's name?
Spinal.
I forget his name. With Spinal, you have to you send out his skulls, and that affects meter drain, or at least it used to before the update. Things that are even deep like that to me are daunting, and it makes me even like me, who's fairly good at fighting games, it makes me kind of question, hey, do I want to pick up Killer Instinct? This is deeper than even I'm willing to go. So I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to pick up a fighting game and take it seriously. And I think you're exactly right. That's why the scene isn't growing. It's fun as shit to watch, but I think
it's growing. It's just it's never going to hit that flashpoint like MOBAs do.
No, I think it's too difficult to execute, and it takes too long to get to the point where you can look like the pros. Yeah. Whereas you could play CSGO and accidentally look like a pro.
Yeah. You could accidentally, get like 4 headshots in a row. You're like, I am a golden god. Yeah. Whereas that doesn't. I think fighting games as one of those things, there is a huge difference between a top level player and a low level player. And I actually don't think it's combos. I don't think it's execution. Because you can have really good combos. You can go into training mode. You can grind out these combos. I see it all the time online, and they fall into certain characters, which that's not important. It's certain archetypes. It's like if I see it's like, oh, who am I playing right now? It's Ibuki. I bet this guy's going to know combos really well, but have shit fundamentals. He's not going to know how to block. He's not going to know how to tech, and I'm just going to run a train on him by kicking him. I'm not even going to do anything fancy. I'm going to sweep this dude until he's insulting his own mother.
Yes.
Why would you give birth to me?
I think that's what it comes down to.
I think it's intimidating at first just to even get into it, because 100%. It's a one-on-one.
Yeah.
It's you and another dude, and when you lose, it's your fault. And you can't even, like, in MOBAs, and a lot of these games that I've noticed, this is going to sound super condescending, and I kind of intend it to be a little condescending.
Oh, let's hear it, motherfucker.
In a lot of these games that have gotten super popular, League, Dota, CSGO, Overwatch, it's a squad-based game. It's you and some people versus some other people. So when you fuck up, a lot of people are like, oh, I did it right. If only so-and-so would have followed me in, we would have cleaned up.
Bronzes do that, not actual Sorry.
Oh, really? Up to gold, platinums do that shit. That goes pretty far. But it's also, at the same time, it's kind of in the human psyche to sort of dissolve your own blame.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just my fault. We lost as a team. Of course, though, when you're doing well, it's like, yeah, I fucking carried. I'm the best. But it sort of it cushions the blow. But when it's with the StarCraft is also like that. StarCraft is generally played 1v1.
Yeah.
It's when you fuck up, it's your fault. You did it. You have no other excuses other than that dude's better than me and he beat me.
I think
and then the other thing, which I think is much more important. I mean, that's a small part. I think that plays into it, but that's more the initial hump of getting into the game, turning it on for the first time, getting into online mode. I think that's the hump there.
Yeah.
But the biggest hump is a lot of fighting game basics, like the actual true basics, not just throwing a fireball, are very opaque.
Yeah.
They're very hard to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's what I like to compare it to is I like to watch UFC fights sometimes, but it's really boring when it goes to the ground and they start grappling. Mm-hmm. And my friend who plays Melee competitively loves because he gets into grappling and he's like, whoa, it's a whole different metagame when it's on the ground. All I'm seeing is these two going for 10 minutes.
Match.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like to me. And to him, he sees like 10 different reversals this guy did. Well, I'm just like, are they going to move? And it's the same thing with fighting game basics.
Are they going to fight or start making out? I don't know.
Fighting game basics is the same exact thing. Yeah. You could watch them, and Donovan watched that match and couldn't tell you any of the basics of what they were doing, probably, because what you're seeing is the flashy combos, you're seeing the execution, and even
that's
if
what
you
a
have
new player sees.
And even if you have a mind for it, it's still hard to see spacing. It's still hard to see their footsies. You know what I mean?
A lot of it, spacing and footsies is a big one. It's also just decision making of when do I do what I do. Because a lot of times, like if you're kind of like, oh, this game's super fun, let me play online, and suddenly you're just like, wait, why am I suddenly getting hit? Like, why did that even hit me? Because you don't know, oh, this move is punishable.
Yeah.
You understand, a lot of those basics are very difficult to get into because the game doesn't really show you. It shows you that you fucked up.
And even
obviously.
When you look up like tutorial videos, what are you going to find? You're going to find combo videos.
Yeah, I think the only fighting game that's had a really good tutorial built in is Skullgirls. Skullgirls had a very good tutorial.
Guilty Gear Xrd, what's the newest version? Revelator. Revelator.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard that one's really good. But
it's pure insanity.
I mean, how many tutorials can you find on YouTube about fighting games? And it's going to be a lot of the basics because you need them. These things aren't obvious, like blocking. Simply, when you block, why do you block? Another big thing is why. Why do you do this? Yeah. You see a top player play, and he gets knocked down, and he just comes up with an uppercut. And they're like, oh, why did you do that? Oh, well, the move's invincible on startup. So you start to think, oh, it's invincible on startup. Why don't you just do that in every opportunity? It's invincible. Like, well, there's a lot of reasons you don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you're saying is the truth because I've experienced it. I've only just, I would say towards the tail end of Street Fighter 4 is when I caught a hold of, like, cross-ups. I was like, oh,
wait, I have to block the other way? Or have you ever gotten a friend to play who, like, oh, let's play a fighting game, and they clearly have no idea, and they're sitting there, like, they're starting to get frustrated, like, why are you hitting me so much better? I'm pressing buttons too, and you gotta be like, look, I gotta break it down because you're not blocking right. No, what do you mean by blocking right? And you're like, oh, well, we have to talk about why you block and when to block. And you're like, okay, well, actually, we got to break it down even further and you suddenly get like 9 levels deep, and you're like, oh shit, no wonder.
This is why people don't play fucking fighting games.
Yeah, there's your fucking answer. Like I said, that's why I never did Smash. It's like I'm never doing anything that requires down to a frame.
They are incredibly intimidating to get into.
Super intimidating, and I think you're right. They're never going to reach those Dota levels, especially since they just don't have the same clout. There's not as much like I don't know why other countries don't find them as entertaining. We got Japan,
it's basically
and America,
Japan,
and America now with Evo. That's it.
And then you kind of have like some South American countries, and China are huge into King of Fighters.
I heard Brazil has a decent fighting game scene. I play a lot of
Brazil. Brazil is nuts for KOF. I want to say 98.
I don't know why, but that makes a lot of sense.
98. But it's like China and Brazil like love like 96 and 98 KOF. Like And Mexico, I think, loves like 90.
You know what? That makes sense because those games are fucking on pirate carts and fucking
that's actually one of the main reasons. Like that's one of the major theories of why it's like, wait, why is King of Fighters so popular in like China and Mexico and a lot of South American countries? Like, yeah, because those things got pirated like immediately on a massive scale, so they were fucking everywhere.
That makes sense.
It's like trying to find someone who's never seen a Metal Slug game.
Yeah.
But I guess
even if they don't play it, they've probably walked past one.
I guess in summary, we're all kind of on the page that the fighting game scene is definitely growing, but it's just never going to be huge.
I also don't think it needs to be, and I think trying to aspire to that level is kind of folly. You need to just look at what you got and make it a good community around that. You don't need to be. Not everything needs to be these massive football stadiums with $1 million prize pools. I
agree. If anything, throwing more numbers at it, I don't think bringing more people in will do anything. I think we need more diverse mindsets, and you're starting to see that more and more. People aren't playing by the Street Fighter V playbook much anymore.
The rules blur now. Like that's the whole thing with tier lists. People are like, oh, tier list, okay, whatever. I'm going to play who I want to play. And suddenly you got these, weird compositions like, wait, why is this dude doing this? And he's beating everyone's ass. Like, well, it's working. That's why he's doing it.
Yeah, I think we need more diversity.
Like, well, you're not playing right. Well, fucking figure it out.
Yeah, but more numbers I don't think is really going to do
much. I think it's hit the numbers I think it needs to right now. I mean, it's going to be getting bigger because more notoriety.
Especially since this Evo has been so popular. I bet there are people who were literally hanging out at a bar, ESPN was on, and they saw Evo.
That actually happened a lot. I had a lot of fun looking at ESPN's Twitter feed.
Oh God, always so funny. Whenever ESPN2 runs anything gaming related, people lose their fucking mind.
The funny thing is if you actually look at it, people like to point out, oh, look, the guy's like, oh, what are these nerds doing on my TV? Which you looked at and you're like, that dude's like jacked though. You say he's a nerd, like he's like built like a linebacker.
And the same people who would say that are the nerds who would play fantasy football, which is the nerdiest form of anything ever to exist.
You yourself, Sam, you got a shaved head, a pretty kick-ass beard, tattoos. You clearly work out.
Jared is an interesting cookie, though. He is quite the fucking enigma. I blame Florida.
Street, no one would look at you and think, oh, there's a nerd who plays fucking games.
Who has a fighting game collection, speaks several languages. Yeah, I don't have that fucking look.
Look at you like what a fucking weeaboo this guy is. You see that in the fighting game community a lot. You see these big dudes. Like there was a guy who was popular for very briefly in Street Fighter 4's time, but he played Abel.
Yeah,
your favorite over there, Donovan. His name he went by the name Ryder, and the dude was just jacked. People would joke that he doesn't play Abel. Abel's playing him. He is Abel playing himself in the game.
Oh, that's
so it's like one, video games aren't nerdy anymore. That stigma sailed. These people need to catch up. But people are like, yeah, what is this game doing in my sports thing? It's like, well, it's competitive too. It's a sport.
Yeah.
But you always see people pointing out, oh, people are like, oh, these nerds. But then you also have to look. Every single one of those tweets got like thousands of comments basically telling them to go fuck themselves.
Oh, yeah. It's always really fun.
I mean, clearly the tide has shifted, but it's just to point out, like, look how out of touch these people are.
Yeah, it has shifted. That's for sure.
Well, boys, we actually ran a little bit over schedule by about 20 minutes, but I think that was a really fantastic episode. We got into a lot of stuff there.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was really good.
Play more games, everybody.
Yeah, people really need to play them more, man. I love fighting games. They're good.
I think I'm gonna fire up Persona 4 Arena Ultramax after this.
That's a good idea,
dude. I'm probably gonna do Bloody Roar 3 later. I like playing that with the girlfriend. It's pretty fun.
We could even do Windjammers. I'll be down.
Oh my god,
that seriously needs to be its own separate episode. We'll do a Windjammers episode.
I will join the Windjammers chat.
It'll fucking happen. But this is the point where I like giving everybody a chance to say where they are on social media, do their plugs, etc. So why don't we go ahead and start with you, Dubious?
Word. So I'm Dubious Gaming Online on YouTube, Dubious Gaming on Twitter, and Dubious Gaming on Twitch. I do reviews mostly, and sometimes I'll stream when I'm really drunk.
Also, NES Chronology should be starting up relatively soon again, right? Some of your shenanigans that have been going on are less shenanigan-y now. So
theoretically, hopefully by the end of the month, you'll see new episodes of that coming out again.
There you go. And then where can people find you, Jared?
Avalanche Reviews on YouTube. I review a lot of games. I do have a series of videos just talking about more of the finer points of the social aspects of gaming and a little more deeper, more offensive stuff. But I review games. I talk about games. I talk about gaming. Not as much stuff about fighting, but if you saw this and you liked it, you tweet at me at Avalanche Jared, Jared, and let me know if you want to see fighting game stuff on the channel if you get into it.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. And then what about you, Josh?
You can find me in the ring. Online, coming to a fighting game near you. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, and just once again, thanks for being on. I know you don't necessarily do a ton of stuff online and all that. Jazz.
Yeah, honestly speaking, online, my presence, I'm a ghost.
Yeah,
it's like this. I'm very opinionated, and this gives me a platform to speak my mind.
Well, you're knowledgeable too. Like the second that Dubious and I were talking about doing a fighting game episode, like you guys were the ones that were like, we need to fucking get them on there for sure. Like, there's no.
It's just like,
so
I heard American call.
I do appreciate you taking out the time to join us. That's very nice of you. And then, as far as I'm concerned, people can always reach me on Twitter at NA1I. That's a really good way to get a hold of me. I also do an Overwatch podcast on Fridays called The Guardians. That is at 6 p.m. Mountain, so I want to say that's 5 Pacific, and then 8 Eastern, if my math is right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Fucking terrible time zones, but that sounds about right. And then I do also stream 4 days a week over Twitch TV / HOTS1I, HOTS1I, for Heroes of the Storm, because MOBAs, something. And then as far as people who came and watched this live, thank you for joining us. It's always really appreciated, like interacting with people on chat. To everybody who's listening to us either on YouTube or iTunes, or I think we do one more, don't we, Dubious? Podbeam, there you go. I'm never going to fucking remember it, but Podbeam. Anybody catching us on there, thank you as well. Once again, I just want to thank everybody who joined me tonight, and we will catch you guys next week. And a sneak peek, just so you know, the last one we'll be seeing Jared on will be a metal podcast, and it is going to be fucking sick. So make sure you catch that one. It's going to be awesome, and we will see you guys next week.